Let's call on him right now. As we used to say in the House, the chair recognizes the former House chairman of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, former Congressman Bob Walker. Robert, so good to have you back on America's Forum.
Great to be with you, J.D.
So, Bob, we heard Samantha Smith. Apart from the fact that you and I probably disagree with her on, quote, climate change, this thing in Lima, is it just a gosh gee whiz, we'd like to do this, no force of law behind it?
Well, of course, what they went with to do was to come up with mandatory standards, and they weren't able to do that. As a matter of fact, at the deadline, it broke down and they had to extend it. And I think what they found was that politically, the only place they could go was to voluntary compliance. But to some extent, this gives you the character of what we face here. Many of the main proponents of climate change are people who have wanted all the way along to put mandates on government that would allow the UN and others to have vastly more control over decision making. This decision shows that the people from the individual countries are not willing to have that happen.
So this is really striking a blow for national sovereignty as opposed to global dictates on matters of, quote, science or really anything else.
I think that's clearly what they could agree on, yes.
Well, let's talk more about this situation, because the United States has been looked to as a nation who will embrace these, quote, environmental initiatives. Yet when you fly into China, there's almost seemingly a wall of smog. You look down at the South China Sea, it's dirty. The Chinese are not interested really in dealing with any type of environmental quality. What should be on reducing emissions and having some sort of livability quotient, I guess?
Well, I think that the real opportunity here is to develop technologies that allow us to maintain our ability to grow economically, and at the same time produce a lot more in the way of anti-pollution. Forefront of that, so that we can take our intellectual property in that regard to the rest of the world. You know, for example, there are a lot of developments in the fuel cell automobile field in just the last few months. Hydrogen-powered cars give off only water as the byproduct of their electricity. And so that's the kind of thing that you can do with technology that allows you to reduce emissions, but at the same time doesn't stop economic growth.
1 minute left. Final 2 years of Mr. Obama's presidency. Do you worry that he will go overboard on some sort of international agreement and leave the legitimate research and development behind?
Well, that's a concern, because the agreement that he made with China was basically, we will do our cleanup now, and you don't have to do anything to 2030. Those kinds of agreements really don't get us to where we need to be. We shouldn't choke off our economy and allow others to grow theirs.
Bob Walker, we want to thank you very much for your time. As always, your insights on this so-called climate change, very, very important. And we thank you, as always, for letting us know what's going on from your vantage point, having spent 2 decades in the Congress of the United States, and of course your time as the chairman of the House Science Committee. Thanks again so much.
Always great to be with you, J.D.
You bet. Bob Walker right there. After the break, we're going to talk about VA health care. Stay with us. There's more to come on America's Forum.